OceanGate CEO ignored early warning signs that the material used to build the submersible wasn't safe.
We all told him, someone is going to be killed in this thing, and you've got to not do it.
So the submersible Titan imploded, killing all 5 people on board. It was a terrible disaster that many had warned Stockton Rush could happen. Over the years, Rush was given 18 clear warnings by experts to stop operations with the Titan submersible. They told him the sub was experimental, flawed, and dangerous. But Rush arrogantly ignored and downplayed every single warning. Rob McCallum, a veteran submersibles expert, told Rush the Titan was a mutt that seemed hastily jerry-rigged with video game controllers and zip ties. He said a Bluetooth control system was a critical failure point. Rush dismissed him. When David Lockridge, a safety expert, demanded rigorous hull tests, Rush fired him on the spot. Industry leaders wrote Rush that his methods could lead to catastrophe. But Rush called them insulting and said he was tired of industry players, citing safety to stop innovation. On test dives, the Titan made ominous cracking noises that structural flaws were breaking down under pressure. Passengers felt lucky to survive their suicide mission trips, and the sub even lost control and spun in circles near the Titanic wreck. Yet Rush ignored every warning and put profits over safety. He cut corners everywhere to rush the Titan into service. Now he has paid the ultimate price, losing his life in the avoidable tragedy experts warned him about 18 times. He believed he knew better than the experts. He saw safety concerns as obstacles to his innovation. Captain Kirk was his inspiration, not cautious engineers. In the end, his cavalier attitude and thrill-seeking cost 5 lives. The dream of visiting the Titanic's wreck lay shattered on the seafloor along with the ruined sub. Stockton Rush had ignored all the signs and warnings. Now he and others paid the ultimate price for his foolishness. The disaster would haunt the community of deep-sea explorers for years to come. Now the ultimate question comes, why didn't anyone stop him? 18 warnings. From 2018 to 2023, 13 dives that made it to the Titanic out of 90 dives. That's less than 14% of deep dive OceanGate trips made it to Titanic shipwreck. Why didn't anyone stop him or shut down his operations? The answer lies in the lack of regulations and oversight in international waters. OceanGate and the Titan operated outside any country's jurisdiction. Rush took advantage of this Wild West environment. There was no regulatory body or enforcement agency with the power to scrutinize his methods and stop him. Experts could warn Rush, but he was free to ignore them without consequences out on the high seas. Some passengers felt queasy about the Titan's jerry-rigged feel, yet still climbed aboard, lured by the chance to see the Titanic. Rush's ego and hubris went unchecked until disaster struck. But there were no rules he had to play by, and no one to discipline him in the lawless open ocean. He could thrill-seek and cut corners with impunity until his luck finally ran out. The Titanic tragedy exposed the dark side of unregulated deep-sea tourism and exploration. Hopefully it leads to safer operations, before more lives are lost in the depths. More chilling revelations have come out about the Titan disaster and Stockton Rush's reckless behavior. Despite 18 warnings, Rush forged ahead unsafely, and was even planning to use the doomed sub for highly risky deep-sea mining. According to passengers, OceanGate provided barely any training for the Titanic trips. Arthur Leubel said he got no safety briefing besides a 10-minute video. Others said they were just shown how to put on a helmet and close the hatch. No simulations or practice emergencies whatsoever, just a flashy subride down to the famous wreck. Internal documents also show how Rush misled regulators to get approval. Rush wrote a letter pledging redundant safety systems and backups galore. But expert testimony paints a far different picture of duct-taped electronics and glued ballast tanks. It was all smoke and mirrors to convince officials to let his top employee go aboard. Most shocking is Rush's grand plan for deep-sea mining. He bragged that after touring the Titanic, the Titan sub would be used to exploit mineral deposits 13,000 feet down. An incredibly dangerous and unproven operation, smacking of Rush's endless appetite for risk. So in the end, it's clear Stockton Rush was an accident waiting to happen. He provided no real training, misrepresented the sub's capabilities, ignored every warning, and planned even bolder missions courting danger. His willingness to gamble with lives in pursuit of glory led inexorably to tragedy. Now regulators must step up to tame the wild frontier Rush exploited, or else his reckless dream of undersea riches could cost many more lives. When experienced pilot David Lockridge raised urgent safety concerns, Rush swiftly fired him. Then Rush shockingly tried to install the company's finance director as chief Titan pilot, despite her lack of any relevant background. This dangerously cavalier attitude speaks volumes about Rush's warped priorities. Rational leaders investigate whistleblower warnings to protect lives. But Rush silenced the truth-teller and scrambled to replace him with an unprepared crony. This recklessness placed profits over people every time. Rush constantly ignored expert advice, believing he knew best, but the ruined Titan now littering the seafloor proves otherwise. His actions needlessly endangered all on board through incompetence and hubris. The Titan disaster must spur long overdue oversight for deep-sea tourism's unregulated frontiers. Rogue pioneers like Rush require strict controls to curb their perilous risk-taking. Until then, authorities are complicit in sacrificing safety for profit and spectacle. Rush's willingness to cut corners and disregard ethics led inexorably to tragedy. Without reform, more innocents will pay the price as he did. Before we continue, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and join our community. By subscribing, you can enjoy mini documentaries and marvelous news and other fascinating innovations. Alright, let's continue. The Titan disaster continues to expose the lack of regulation around experimental deep-sea vessels like OceanGate's ill-fated sub. While space tourism in the US is overseen by the FAA, Rush exploited international waters to dodge any real oversight. Like commercial space companies, Titan passengers had to sign waivers acknowledging potential death. But OceanGate's hurried fine print is worlds apart from the informed consent standards for spaceflight enforced by the FAA. The FAA requires operators to fully disclose risks in plain language, ensuring customers understand what they're undertaking. OceanGate gave Titan tourists a legally opaque waiver right before departure, along with socks and a fleece vest, hardly sufficient prep for surviving disaster 12,000 feet under sea. And while vehicles like SpaceX's Dragon must satisfy NASA's rigorous safety rules, the Titan dodged any meaningful regulations despite experts' urgent warnings. Rush dismissed their concerns, but disaster has proven them tragically right. Hopefully, authorities recognize that deep-sea tourism needs much tighter controls to protect human life, like those governing the certified spacecraft sending civilians into orbit. Risk-taking pioneers like Rush can't be left unrestrained to build makeshift machines carrying paying customers into Earth's last uncharted frontier. The Titan's loss must pave the way for enhanced oversight before more lives are sacrificed to human ambition, hubris, and greed. The FAA's model of informed consent and verified safety provides a template for urgently needed reform. In the wake of the Titan disaster, OceanGate is pathetically attempting to erase its online existence. The company deleted its website and social media accounts, trying to scrub away years of hype about the ill-fated sub. After Titan's catastrophic implosion, OceanGate now hopes to disappear down a virtual memory hole. But the internet never forgets. Archives remain showing how Rush boasted of his risky sub-design. His hubristic words linger to haunt the company. OceanGate wants its reckless history purged after Titan's loss exposed gaping safety issues, but this company must face public scrutiny, not cower and hide. Erasing its online presence reeks of evasion. Rush constantly dismissed urgent warnings about Titan's flaws while publicizing its abilities online. This makes OceanGate's disappearance seem even more shameful. The company won't even stand by Rush's own words now. OceanGate owes the public full transparency about what doomed the Titan and its passengers. This information could prevent future tragedies. The families of the dead deserve answers, but OceanGate childishly pretends its troubles will vanish if its website does. A company is judged by how it responds to crisis. OceanGate failed that test spectacularly. This Vanishing Act projects zero accountability. Until OceanGate publicly explains what went wrong, suspicions will linger about Titan's demise. The company should restore its online presence and start being fully honest about the disaster. That's the only way forward after a tragedy costing 5 lives. The Titanic tragedy has hit close to home for famed director James Cameron. After rumours swirled of a potential film about the doomed Titan sub, Cameron firmly rejected the idea. As an expert in deep-sea diving who has extensively explored the Titanic wreck, Cameron wants no part in dramatising this recent disaster. He calls any such film plans offensive and untrue. Cameron knows the dangers and pressures of venturing into the icy Atlantic depths. While some sought to capitalise on the disaster, Cameron recognises the suffering of those left behind. Any movie would seem to exploit their pain for entertainment and profit. so Cameron will steer clear of these murky waters, sticking to documentaries about the Titanic's rich history. That ship's fate fascinates millions, but its recent echo in the Titan sub is too raw and real. Hopefully Hollywood follows Cameron's lead, allowing time to honor the dead before spectacle overrides sensitivity. Their memorial rests on the seafloor, a sober reminder that some frontiers remain untamed. No blockbuster can replicate that lesson now. Thanks again, and see you in the next video, Mysterious Minds.